At 70, Scott has been writing poetry for at least 60 years, encouraged more recently by regular dialogue with Eric Muller, whom you'll hear reading soon, to whom he is very grateful for the challenge to explore briefer poems. Still at heart, Scott is a storyteller whose poems are meant to be accessible, to capture people, and experiences that invite readers to explore their own lives as deeply and fearlessly as they can. The occasionally dark tones sing side by side with great joy for life. A yes, the magical bear says, sweet and sour, happy and sad, same bowl. Welcome, Scott.
My guess is I don't need the microphone, but I'll use it. On behalf of Stacy and Eric and myself, I want to thank Joan and the Guild for having us here, and all of you for being here, and offering free food apparently works. I'm really excited because I suspect that the aerial photography afterward is going to show this as the largest gathering of people to ever witness the reading of poetry. I have the honor of starting off being first in the lineup, and as Eric said to me, by the way, you know, poets make shit up, you know that. So anyway, as Eric said, he said, Scott, do whatever you can. You just get on base any way you can, and we'll bring you home. So I appreciate that. Stacy and Eric and I did talk about the applause between poetry, between each poem, and we agreed we prefer not to have that. Stacy said it takes up too much time. Eric said it interrupts the flow, and I said it's never enough. Last month when we were here for the reading, 3 wonderful, strong women's voices were reading, and I just have to share one of the real delights was the youngest of the readers. I noticed when she was reading there was a very well-groomed older man sitting there just held in rapt attention, and it was evident that that was her father, and at the end of the reading they embraced, and just the most beautiful thing to see for a young poet. And it reminded me of the one and only time my parents 45 years ago came to a poetry reading, and I read a poem about cross-dressing, and I never saw them again. The Christmas invitations still came, but they always had a dress code. The casual arts. I steal dreams from how trees move in the wind. I'm a happy thief. Parts of my poems are stolen from a friend whose heart is open in the way that some people share their cookies even before knowing they've had enough. I am blessed beyond song, dancing small steps I recently practiced on icy cobblestone streets of Bruges. I am the costume bear who looks so small from the ancient bell tower, spinning and looping around the ice rink, then grows as one descends the 400 steps and draws near enough to see the mock terror and hear the delighted shrieks of children on their new Christmas skates. My wife takes my hand in the warmth of my jacket pocket, the long, soft scarf she bought for me at the holiday market wrapped loosely 2 or 3 times around my neck. I allow few gifts for myself. There remains a danger in gifts and happiness against which I still defend. Are you happy? She asks. Yes, yes. Now, home among poets, those who share, those who listen, and those who wait, I wear my new scarf from Bruges. I enjoy telling those who ask. From my wife, a Christmas present when I admitted desire. How poets disappoint. I smile knowingly, listen closely, watch the world and compose my face appropriately, avoiding signs of judgment and exaggeration. I carefully seek the exact word to convey my interest, my surprise, my compassion, even in moments of apologetic daring, my wisdom. Poetry is the art of performance even before a jot of ink. I observe joy and pain, discovery and loss, leaves turning color, adventure and stasis, melting ice caps, children leaving home, and cancers spreading with and without the hope of cure. And I read about the world. I follow up on what I've been told. I talk about war and peace, the frailty of the ecosystem, the uncivil discourse of politics. I write about love and disappointment, the working class and classless, even the occasional humorous reflection on vegan versus carnivore choices, eating with chopsticks, knife and fork, or bare hands. But what I think about mostly are the people who have pissed me off and how to get even. My dear child, I love you. Is this not the best way to begin a message that may not yet interest a son or daughter? That invites but does not require self-reflection and includes the pirating of ideas and images you are too young to know? You can Google Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyer, who had the kinds of slow conversations I turn to, and perhaps we can have someday, concluding that we desire less to know the meaning of life than to embrace the experience of life, to be fully alive. I want to talk to you about geraniums. And while what I tell you may be true anywhere with different flowers, I want you to know about the geraniums of Paris. I love Paris, and I love Paris from my first visit 50 years ago, when I saw bright red geraniums in window boxes. Did you know, I did not the first time I saw them, that geraniums turn their faces to the sun, that they follow the sun throughout the day, that if you are having café au lait and a croissant first thing in the morning, the clusters of red watch the dawn. And when you return from a walk around the Eiffel Tower, they will have shifted slightly but still face the sun. You will become curious, stop back after visiting Notre Dame, and again after sitting quietly with Monet's water lilies in l'Orangerie, or sipping espresso in the Tuileries. You can take a boat ride on the Seine or have lunch, doesn't matter. You will fill your day as you wish and return to confirm what you suspected earlier, that the geraniums too have been in motion all day, that they will face with you, affirming a certainty you may have doubted or longed for, the last sunlight of the day. Isn't this amazing, my child, that you can go to Paris yourself and know this to be true as I have told you it is? I have never lied to you. But discovering for yourself is wonderful. You may be standing exactly where I stood at your age, different geraniums, of course, and I may be gone, but the same sun and you, a young traveler, excited to find yourself face to face with the world. Coast to coast. Reflections on a hike from St. Bees to Robin Hood's Bay with my wife and two old friends. And my two old friends are here tonight, and part of the reason we're older is because of this. I wish my body could write this earthy poem, a bold calligraphy of effort and surrender, like stacking stones in a cairn that marks a trail with no unnecessary spaces between stones, free from the struggle to find words to hang flesh and sinew on the skeleton of our hike across England. I am at a loss for the language of exertion, sweat, and exhaustion, language that tells the path across lush fells, squeezes through narrow stiles, and balances on the thin footing against the gill. Language that adequately sings about moments when despair and elation summit the steep climb together, and one looks back toward the Irish Sea, 40 miles behind where the first lines of this poem began to compose themselves in 52 tiny foot bones, feeling for balance on the stony face of England. The perfect phrasing of single steps becoming a dance, a wet, sunny, and muddy choreography, simultaneously awkward and graceful, outdistancing doubt, pain, and fear. An old poet's fear that he cannot remember the words he is looking for, cannot state with them the ecstatic conviction to continue until he sees, smells, bends low to touch and taste the North Sea that is waiting. To truly be a traveler is to map personal geology and geography. It's eons of wanting. The Ice Age, the Stone Age, the ages of enlightenment and consent. To sit at night by lamplight, travel journal propped on weary knees, a pencil sharpened by a penknife that cut an apple and cheese that day, and sketch the connective tissues that join morning's first enterprising steps with the final plodding steps of the day toward dinner among friends and strangers, and then bed. How does one explain the sensuality of determination, the daily bargaining with the body to keep imagined promises of place and time and distance, the intimacy of I will do this for you if you do that for me, the sometimes careless negotiations of younger men who trust contracts with their bodies, are not yet surprised that the arms and legs, lungs and hearts have honored casual agreements in the face of howling winds off the moors, sucking peat bogs, precarious broken slate descents through the Lake District and the dales, translating a thin winding line on a map into 200 miles of animal breaths, primal inhalations and exhalations, one following another, tasting direction and desire. How does one capture thirst and the sensation of icy water, mouthfuls cooling the throat, entering the body's stream, and then magically becoming like steam in an engine driven forward? Describe how a handful of almonds, a few broken crackers, raisins, and bits of dark chocolate are transformed into small explosions in arms and legs, like pistons pounding hour after hour along the Beck stream, toward the dark blue glacial tarns, the wind and water-carved limestone sculptures, through miles of heather in full purple bloom, fueling the cries of exertion and delight, startling grazing sheep and hidden grouse, shaping the muscles around the mouth, shaping the mouth itself into counterpoint around the thought, if I were to die here, whoever finds my body will not know if I died in ascension or descent, cannot tell if my face is frozen in a grimace, a smile, or both, if I have succeeded or failed. This is not easy for the aging body that seeks a certain destination, a forgotten virility awakened in the hiker, renewed by exhilaration, discovering what is beyond the imagined limits. The very rhythmic redundancy, the excitement, day after day for 16 days and then night after night, falling into deep, exhausted but satisfying sleep, curled next to the woman I have slept beside for years, thinking I've never been here before, thinking we have been here forever, thinking that tomorrow we will take the first step again, 52 tiny foot bones, shaping themselves to the demanding path that never shapes itself to us. This one's called The Buddha's Manservice. I don't usually talk much about my poems. This was actually created in the shower. It was 4 different poems that I had nothing to write on except an old Kleenex box. And by the time I got around to it again, it came together as a single poem. So, The Buddha's Manservant. All the big names had attendants. Valets, cooks, scribes, or sandal makers, unless they were barefooted, which showed a certain connection to the earth of the poor. Some as many as 12. Of course they were not needed. The real deal guys could do it alone. But the secret was what happened when they asked, "My friend, will you give me a hand?" Many years ago I married a beautiful woman, but I got old and something was growing in me. They cut it out. The doctor said I could still enjoy sex, but it would be more like pulling a bucket out of a dry well. We both laughed when I said, I've already walked a long ways. I remember water. Often I was his cook, which I know surprises some people. We ate. He did not ignore hunger. I washed the rice 2 or 3 times and chose fruits and vegetables that were fresh and did not have too many blemishes. But that was just how I wanted to do it. He never commented on it. Sometimes smart Alex asked me if I counted a certain number of grains of rice. I just smiled. What's the point of trying to explain eating and shitting to someone like that? Once, passing through my village, I was resting at home when my wife came in from the garden for a nap. The moist hair under her arms like ripe fruit, the scent of mown grass, rich soil, and snipped roses on her skin. I've missed you, she whispered and curled beside me. Can you stay until morning this time? I breathed her in deeply, enjoyed the thought of an erection, but not, and then the sun rose. We did not converse as much as one might imagine. We often walked for hours in silence. Maybe he thought about what to say to those who gathered wherever he went. Once we talked about how people say that cats have 9 lives, or that 1 year in a dog's life is 7 in a man's life. I don't know why but I asked, how much are my dreams worth? He said I could either name a price or carry them quietly in my heart, holding the belief that they are priceless beyond measure. When I was dying by the side of the road, he said, you know, I can't wait here with you. A rolling stone gathers no moss. And we both laughed deep in our bellies. I'll give your sandals to the old potter. And in that moment, I was certain how much he loved me and how lucky I had been my whole life. Broken. When he was 4, he broke a teacup, a saucer, his Jewish mother had wrapped in a pair of underwear and carried with her when she fled Germany in 1941. It was her grandmother's and could never be replaced. He was slapped on the side of his face when he was told that. No one said that what mattered was that his grandmother survived, and so would he. The first time he heard the words heartbroken, his best friend Robert was struck and killed by a hay truck on the narrow country road between their homes when they were both 8 years old. Robert is dead, his father told him with a whiskey slur. He fell asleep repeating the words, Robert is dead. Not Bobby's dad. No one ever called him Bobby. At 18, high on meth, he broke a window, broke into a liquor store, broke the cash register, broke several bottles trying to steal more than he could carry, broke his mother's heart when the police came to their home and pulled him out. His mother said that, "You've finally broken my heart." Even after he got out of jail, he promised he would do better, be better. He broke those promises again and again. At 40, his mother died. He knew she was ill, but had not visited. His brother had left several messages to which he did not reply. Then a terse message, "Mom is dead." If it had been a letter, it would have lain on the table with the last several unanswered letters from his ex-wife. Our daughter needs shoes. Our daughter needs a warmer jacket. You promised to send a birthday card, and you broke her heart again. It is impossible to feel another's broken heart, as if it's just a broken bottle, shards of glass to sweep up so you don't step on them and cut your feet going to do what you would have done anyway. There is no explanation. No reason makes sense of why a man wakes up one day, a stabbing pain in his chest, light filtering through dirty windows and broken shades, no different from countless mornings before, has trouble taking a breath that reaches his lungs, can no longer imagine blood flows in and out of the muscle that is reluctant to pump anymore, cannot see how this day promises anything. And then he understands he has finally broken his own heart. Whether or not it is the will to live fear of his death or his life or a miracle. This day he makes a promise he will keep. 1984, what my friends said, my friend Kevin, getting sober with a Vietnam veteran. On starless, moonless nights, there are no moving shadows, only sounds of branches at play, falling pine cones, beating a rhythm on the roof, the lighter percussion of squirrels' feet across shingles. A distant train is a French horn in the dark, a siren rises like a flute. Nights like this, I don't miss my legs, as if they were never connected to my heart and soul, but only to something I once believed. But nights when stars are bright, the moon full, oh, a meteor shower is beyond imagination. Be a partner in the dance. Some nights I'm lucky, exhausted enough to fall asleep. I dream of waltzing in verdant rice paddies where other young men died. Bare roots. The local gardening guru says that bare roots, roses, shrubs, and fruit trees planted in unamended soil grow best. Do not let roots dry out between the nursery and home. We too, pulled from failed landscapes, are exposed. So much stripped away, earth-shy, urgent only because it is necessary to remain quick and moist between beds. Water generously even when transplanted in the rain. Do not amend the soil, the expert repeats. It is best that the roots know exactly what's what, where they are intended to survive. And I'll close with lending library. 1. Grandmother would have called the fellow at the colorful piano on the sidewalk in front of the downtown library rustic or road-weary, a bit ragtag, smiled at him and listened without judgment. She had raised 5 children during the Great Depression, not hers, and had a gentle way to describe those down on their luck. 2. A cardboard sign on the soundboard reads, "Play me." He does, gently, easily, melodiously, unhurried. No one waits a turn at the keyboard. He seems to play only for himself or an unseen listener. Grandmother would have described him as a young man, thin, bearded, in worn clothing. She would not have said skinny, shaggy, or dirty. If I had asked her what he was doing there, she would have answered, "He's playing the piano." 3. Now a woman leans into the back of the piano, hands raised above her head in a fluttering motion illustrating an airy descent, her voice enthusiastic but contained, speaking only to the piano player, describing Jesus coming to earth from a different dimension, explaining that he's not from around here. Isn't it amazing, she says, to bring all that love from somewhere else? 4. Hands moving lightly over the keys, the young pianist smiles to indicate he is listening. Lots of interesting theories, he says. We'll probably never know for sure. The woman nods as if in accord with him and the music. My father would have told this story very differently, but I'm listening with my grandmother. Thank you.